Right, it looks like Ruben Amorim is going to be the new Man United manager, and I did a Xavi Hernandez video yesterday because it looked like he potentially was going to take over. Now, I've already done a FM video in FM24 with that. I will leave a link down in the description all about Ruben Amorim when he was actually linked to the Liverpool post. So that, if you want to dive into more of the what he's doing at Sporting kind of video, go check that out. But stay with us. We're going to discuss how the tactic is going to set up, what suits Manchester United, what doesn't, the biggest glaring problem people are kind of already alluding to, how we can fix that short term to get us through the season, which players suit it, which players don't. And then we'll put it into FM as well. So you Patreons as well, there is the Amorim tactic. I will relink that down in the description if you want the FM version of the tactic, which looks a little bit like this. This is the original version that he was kind of doing during last season at Sporting. There's also going to be a couple of tweaks that we'll talk about to kind of just suit a couple of the roles and player changes that we will need to see at Man United if number one, he takes over, and then number two, if he continues with the 3-4-3, and I imagine he would. There's a little bit of a thing that I think signing Euro and De Ligt in the summer when we already had Martinez kind of leads you to think, well, maybe they were looking at maybe going down this route long term. All right, let's get into it. Smash a like on today's video. If you would like to see another tactical replication of anybody across Europe, let me know down in the comments. Always open to suggestions, but let's get into today's video. Right, so here is the squad. Now, I've lined it up in a 3-4-3 with what he's familiar with and the squad itself. So I thought we'd do a little squad bit first, pick the kind of the strongest 11 and then work around it. So as you can see, we're kind of covered in all the areas. I have put Luke Shaw in as a left-sided centre-half rather than a wing-back. The wing-back position is quite niche and what he will require from it, and I don't think Luke Shaw will have the physicality to do it, be able to stay fit. However, he would make a superb left centre-half. Maybe Martinez can go in the middle at times and be a decent backup, so I think that's a good rotation option. So we're covered at centre-half. You know, Shaw, Maguire, Evans and Lindelof as backups for Euro, De Ligt and Martinez is pretty impressive. On the right-hand side, we've got Dalot and Mazraoui, two players that we know can play on the left. I do think it probably suits Dalot a little bit. Better going forward, better going high and wide. Crosses into the box, he's pretty decent at. So I'm think for now, out of all the other issues, not all the other issues, but squad strengthening, I don't necessarily think that is a place that we need to look at. Generally, I think Dalot, Mazraoui would probably both suit a back five or a back three playing as wing backs rather than a flat back four. So let's take Mazraoui out. So we've got Dalot in there. The left-hand side is an obvious issue. He may go down the route of definitely getting someone in. There is definitely a need to sign a left wing back because even if Malacia, bless him, gets himself fit, he's probably not at the level to be a starter for Manchester United. Harry Amas is an interesting option. Man United been fans calling out for it. I think there's maybe a little bit more now in terms of getting him in because we're so short at left wing back, and you know Martinez has played there at times. Mazraoui and Dalot have both played there, but we really want that left wing back to be high and wide. Needs to be naturally left footed. I think Harry Amas defensively in some of the pre-season games he wasn't poor, but obviously that's the bit that he needs to improve on. But then playing in a 5 rather than a 4 would definitely help him where he's strongest, getting forward. I think Malacia would actually be quite good as a wing back, and we'll talk about the system in a little bit. So just for now, we'll keep Harry Amas in, shall we? Because I think he may have to get a nudge, especially if there's any squad picking for Wednesday's game in the Carabao Cup. Middle of midfield, we're kind of sorted in there, I think. Casemiro's look decent. It would be really good at times, actually, to see Casemiro and Ugarte play together. He does set it up a little bit differently. It's not just a double pivot that's staying there. However, I do feel Casemiro would like to work alongside someone like Ugarte, who's going to do a lot more running and cover him a little bit more. You've also got this back three behind him. You know, if we're talking Casemiro there alone with just two centre-halves with the full-backs out of position, so having an extra kind of two players round him, as in one in defence and Ugarte alongside him, we might see him pick up a little bit of form that we saw in the first season. I thought he was actually really good against West Ham at the weekend. So that's the midfield, sort of like the holders sorted and the wing-backs and defenders. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. I think there's different variations that Amorim can play. We've obviously got cover out on this left-hand side, Rashford and Garnacho. There could obviously be then if he wanted to play two out-and-out wingers in a 4-3-3, in a 3-4-3. He can do that, no problem. We will go Garnacho to start. And then Mason Mount, decent backup, could probably do that role as well on the Morita role, which we'll talk about. And then Diallo and obviously Bruno can play out there. And then Joshua Zirkzee, a backup for Højlund. Højlund will definitely suit this style of play. So here we are, a 3-4-3. How does it look? So he likes to build up. We know he likes to build up, obviously, out from the back. You've got that initial overload with the three. And what he sometimes actually does is, let's for now, just take Casemiro out. Let's get in Menu. Because the double pivot is an interesting double pivot at the moment. So he's got Hulmand, who is a defensive midfielder, number 6, was actually the replacement to Agate, who signed, a year ago when he left last summer. That summer of 2023, went to PSG from Sporting. So he will know how to play this system. But basically, the middle centre-half often goes in to make a double pivot, like that. And the fullbacks go wide. And then this guy, who is normally Morita, is very much a volante, roaming playmaker. There's changes that they'll have to make to suit Manchester United, but he likes to get higher. And that's how they generally like to build up. So it'd be interesting to see if he brings that in. Now, that is very, very difficult to recreate in Football Manager. In fact, we can't do it. People will probably be shouting libero at me right now, but the libero doesn't work. When the goalkeeper has the ball in FM, a libero sits in. He doesn't move into the midfield once the ball's progressed up the pitch. So that will not work. So that's a little bit disappointing, but it is quite a niche thing to see a centre-half moving into sort of like that number 6 position in build-up. They sometimes build up differently as well. They will sometimes spread the 3 like that and have the fullbacks and allow the fullbacks to get extremely high and wide. And that will then bring in the 2 wide players to sort of like players and 2 number 10s, so they've got opportunity to do that. And what they like to do is central progression. It is quick, sometimes 1-2s, bounce passes, and third man runs to get in behind. There's not over-reliance on playing with width. All right, they're using the width as a little bit of a decoy. So this is where I do actually think that Harry Amas might be okay, because it's not an essential tool of the team. So if I just flip it the other way, okay, so here we are in the opposition half. Now, what the 3 centre-halves, to be fair to them, do not do, the marauding sort of like wide centre-backs that we've seen from people like Bastoni and the old Sheffield United ones. They're not so much of that in terms of dribbling and over-carrying and really getting into the final third. As I said, the sitter, the middle of the 3 libero, will sometimes sit in. So maybe, playing with a libero in maybe some games is possible. But what he likes to do is get his wing backs extremely high. And we said we like to play through the middle. So they'll play these little bounce passes, these little 1-2s, give and go. So it might be a ball into Garte, from Garte into Højlund, maybe a layoff to Rashford, and then a third man run from Fernandes, who will then put it into the back of the net, and then obviously the vice versa. And what they do is they just keep their width and their height and their verticality, the wing backs. And if it gets too tight, and teams often then come into a really narrow 4-4-2 or a really narrow 4-5-1, then the option would be then to go to Harry Amas and a lot on the outside. So not over-reliance on the wing-backs. That's once again where I think Harry Amas could potentially work okay, because he's not going to have to do... He's going to have to do a lot of running. There'll be a lot of running involved, but obviously we know that he'd probably be fit. Have backups on the bench, maybe Mazraoui as well, to do jobs maybe for the last 20 minutes, etc. But probably an option that could be looked at, with the fact that it's not a back 4. He's not going to be absolutely essential in build-up, as once again, it's a lot of central progressions. So not an over-reliance on him to be really involved. It'd be more just a really good opportunity just to get embedded in. One of the issues Matt they have spoke about is what would happen to Bruno, and they kind of change it a little bit. Like they've got Gonçalves, they've got Trincao, they've got other players. They've played Paulinho at times last season in different roles. So the front 3 does change depending on who it is. So sometimes it can even be Marcus Edwards. And if Marcus Edwards plays on that right-hand side, if we just flip it round, so try and flip it the other way, so it would be Marcus Edwards on the left-hand side, he's often the furthest man forward and playing a bit like an inside forward. So that would work. Fernandes would definitely drift in, and Mason Mount could do that. He could play in behind, and that would allow Dalot to be even higher on this side. So there's there's nothing really to worry about. I do like the idea of Fernandes being a little bit higher and working in a team that is going to be heavily orientated around possession and these little quick combinations in here. I think he'd be really good at that. Maybe less defensive responsibility as well, because we've got that 4 midfield and then the 3 defenders behind him. And then the other combinations, at times it could be, Garnacho on for Rashford, Fernandes maybe even not playing, maybe even coming into the midfield at times. I can't see it, to be fair. I can't see the opportunity that he would do that. He has played Gonçalves there at times. Whether he would do that in the Premier League. People are talking about the similarities with Ten Hag, leaving a team that's dominated in a lesser league than what the Premier League is, and then come in. So it'd be really interesting to see if he makes the same mistakes as what Ten Hag does. I think his system, the problem with Ten Hag is that he hasn't had a set style of play. He's tried to change it too often. He didn't bring his Ajax blueprint and try and stick it in and then try and build a team around it. I think if he'd have done that from day one, we would have had some pain to start with. But by now, you may have seen a better looking Manchester United and recruited players round the tactic, rather than sort of like bringing a load of big names in and then trying to just fit them in wherever. So with that, I'm quite confident with how it's going to potentially work out. There's definitely work to be done. I'm just looking forward to a really clear identity. He's not really moved tactically. I think there will have to be a change in here. So one of the things that they're maybe speaking about, like they got done a couple of times against PSV in the Champions League when they were playing against maybe a team on their level, but he's not had to really adapt. Bearing in mind that he's taken on Porto and Benfica, who have got far bigger budgets than him, and winning 2 championships. I think it was 21 and then the 24 season. He's been able to really build a clear style and not adjusted that much. So maybe at times it would be a Casemiro coming in, maybe in games where we're expecting maybe not to be as dominant with the ball, Casemiro going in. So basically, they have this anchor, which is Hulmand, and then the other one, Morita, kind of just goes everywhere. He's in the penalty box. He's drifting into areas. He's a bit like a Volante / roaming playmaker where he doesn't really get involved in build-up. He moves into the penalty area a lot. I think with the FM tactic that I built, I did actually put it as a Volante just so we could get those forward runs. And it ends up being a little bit of a 3-1-6, which teams have tried a lot of the time, but it does open up a little bit to counter-attacks. However, Manchester United are getting done with counter-attacks playing with the back 4. I would be happy if those 3 stayed in the position. We'd maybe be in a position to maybe defend it and be really aggressive. If not, it might just mean Casemiro not playing in the highest line and just helping recycle the ball. Playing in a clear 3-2-5 structure, I don't think is a bad way to go. Or even a 2-3-5 with maybe, if the ball's on the left-hand side, Martinez coming in and having it look a little bit like that. That could potentially work too. Some teams go with that. But to maybe give us extra depth to start with and extra protection, maybe a 3-2-5 rather than a 3-1-6, in particular if Casemiro plays. Menu might like to do that Morita role at times, so maybe when they're absolutely dominating teams with low blocks, it'd be great for a Menu to come in and do that Morita role, driving and dribbling forward. Obviously, Rashford would be good in this little half space in here. Fernandes would be good. The only people that I don't see it suiting a great deal is obviously Luke Shaw, but we've spoke about. Mason Mount's an interesting one. Whenever he gets himself fit, he could probably do that role as well, alongside an Agate and doing that. He could probably do that, no problem. He could also be a nice little foil as well for Fernandes, but we know that Fernandes generally plays most of the time. However, he's out injured again. The only person I don't think it suits is Xerxes. He's like a really good number 9, someone who's really good at chasing in behind, stays quite long, will help with build-up, but the idea is that the striker stays long, pins the centre-halves, almost plays as a poacher at times and allows the number 10s and the 2 6s, whoever that may be, to do the combinations and the build-up. So is Xerxes an absolute killer in front of goal? No. Has he got that pace that sometimes they like to use with Gyökeres up front for Sporting? No. But let's be honest, now Højlund's fit, he's going to be a backup, isn't he? So maybe not something to worry about. It might even mean at times as well, Marcus Rashford going in there, allowing Højlund to maybe, when Højlund picks up these niggles, it could be Garnacho and Fernandes and Rashford leading the line up there. That could be a potential option as well. All right, I'm quite happy with it at the moment. I was kind of confident about Ten Hag. I think I was caught between that and Pochettino. I would say that I'm more confident in maybe Ruben Amorim. I'm a big fan of a 3 at the back. It'll be fantastic to watch them build up in a 3. I think I said the squad's going to be okay. They're going to have to maybe do something in January in this left midfield, left wing back role. I've mentioned Ben Chilwell loads of times. Look, we know he's probably not a long-term option. However, on loan, cheap, because Manchester United will not have a budget, I imagine, for January, to get him in just to act as a little bit of a backup, even for Harry Mass, who maybe takes the world by storm, playing FA Cup games, League Cup games, playing Europa League games potentially. That would be a nice little deal. But I say that and everyone disagrees with me. But backup-wise, absolutely fine. I would say just till the end of the season as a loan option. And then, Eriksen would potentially struggle, but we're not too worried about him. Lindelof, Maguire, Evans, Malacia would just need to get fit. So they're all other backup options as well. All can probably fit in the system. Harry Maguire would be probably really good as that middle centre-half as well. And the games that he's played over the last 12 months, when he's played, he's been pretty damn good. So there we go. There's my little yeses, positives, and a few little negatives. That 3-1-6 is maybe a little bit of an issue. Some teams have done it. Girona, Michel's done it. Pep's done it a little bit at times. I'm kind of confident that Agatha is going to have a big role at Manchester United in this system, and he's already done it with him at Sporting, so that will definitely help. Right, we'll very quickly go and look at how it looks in FM, the original Amorim tactic, and then also little tweaks that we can make to give it more of a Manchester United feel. Okay, so here we are, 3-4-3, sweeper, keeper on support. Anana, obviously, is used to maybe being more of attack, but there will be less long balls. There'll be more passes. They do go direct into Gyökeres at times, but when you've got this amount of players in sort of like the defensive third and the build-up phase, you don't necessarily need to go long all the time. So sweeper, keeper on support for him. The defenders, there's not an overplaying of driving forward. However, because I'm maybe thinking Dalot, depends if we have Fernandes on this right-hand side. It might mean Dalot goes a little bit higher because we'll expect Bruno to go in. So wide centre-back on defend, just so he can help a little bit in terms of filling in that right back role. Ball-playing defender on cover for the middle centre-half. Left-sided defender, ball-playing defender on defend. If it was Martinez, you could probably say dribble more as well, carrying into that final third, into that middle third. Wing-backs, 2 wing-backs on attack. Very important that they are on attack because we need to get them high and wide as much as possible. The Agate role, the Hullman role, has been an anchor on defend. Very important that he stays at least that one. Now, this one is the interesting one. It's a Secundet Volante for Morita. It could be a roaming playmaker as well. I just wanted that Secundet Volante because Morita gets into these little areas. And then player instructions could be, if it's a Kobe Minu, you could go dribble more, take more risks. Maybe even move into channels at times, depending on your player. If it was a Casemiro, I'd maybe just go defensive midfielder on a support in those big games. And you could see that happening a lot of the time. Tell you what, let's put the players in. So there you go, Volante, roaming playmaker, Eriksen maybe. They have done that in bigger games. It might even be Bruno going in there. Be interesting to see what he does in certain games. When they're expected to really dominate, he sometimes plays an extra attacker. So he would bring in maybe a Gonçalves off the wide area and play him as the number 8, or number 6 at times, 8/6, whatever you want to call it, and then allows to get 2 more attacking players into the middle of the pitch. This one's the interesting one. I do think he would potentially flip it and go inside forward on attack, sit narrower, and that would be your Rashford or Garnacho. And on this side, he would flip it, and he would probably even go AP on support. And probably with that one as well, sit narrower. So we get that Dalot going around the outside. Rashford would be that threat from that side. Harry Mass maybe supporting. But we have got sit narrower on there for Rashford. So he goes into that position. That will help us get that maybe 3-2-5 in build up and into that final third. So there would be Bruno Fernandes. And up front, obviously, Xerxes likes it, but Højlund would definitely be, I expect him to kick on an extra level with Ruben Amorim in charge. Right, into the team instructions. Positive mentality. Passing to space. They do like to do those third man runs and balls in behind to Gyökeres when we can, or Gyökeres, whatever you want to call him. Play out of defence, obviously, we've got that build up. I would also probably put on, I'm going to click that on, focus the player through the middle. Slightly shorter passing. Slightly higher tempo to get them possession numbers up. Tweak it as you go. There might be at times the opportunity to go longer a little bit more and go higher tempo. probably, if you're struggling to break teams down, that's always a good way of just moving up the tempo, moving the passing down. No more than short. It's not a complete tiki-taka. So I would go either shorter, slightly higher tempo, and just swap between the ones mid-game, depending on what you need. If you want to kill a game as well, shorter passing, standard tempo, really move it down, keep hold of the ball. Obviously, they're one of the strongest sides the strongest side in Portugal at the moment, so their possession numbers are already going to be good. I haven't put anything on. They like to sometimes cross into the box to obviously Gyökeres, who's very good in the air, so I've left all that blank. By all means, maybe change your crosses. There's loads of cutbacks and things like that, so we've put low crosses on. Balls sort of like in and around like the byline. Low crosses for tap-ins and players arriving deep. Marita, from that number 6 position, the furthest wing back or the furthest wide player coming in at the back post. In transition, there is a press, but it's not an absolute gegenpress, ridiculous press. It's quite difficult because they do have a lot of the ball, so it'd be interesting to see how he sets Manchester United up going forward in terms of the press. It will be organised, that is for sure. Will he go absolute gung-ho? Probably not, especially because Man United are not one of the strongest teams in the division, not being great at pressing, so that will take a lot of work. That may change over time, but for now I've left it off. Counter-attacking, absolutely yes. Distribute to the centre-halves, take short kicks, high press, high line, defensive line, drop off more, adopt safety approach first. So when there is that counter-attacking, if he's going with that 3-1-6, there will be an immediate dropping off when we lose possession of the ball. So that may happen. And trap outside. All right, so there is 2 tactics for you. There's the original Amorim, and then we're going to call this one the Amorim 3-4-3. There'll be 2 tactics for you Patreons, link down in the description if you want both of the tactic files. If you want to see how it looks in the game in terms of the standard Amorim tactic, please check out the video that I did earlier on I think it was in the summer or then towards the end of the season when it was suggested that Amorim was going to take over at Liverpool. Done like a sporting setup, and then we look at how it fits with Liverpool, and you can see a couple of clips as well. All right, let me know your thoughts about Ruben Amorim. I'm happy. My number 1 choice, it would have been my 3rd choice, but probably a realistic number 1 choice because Nagelsmann was never going to take over, and number 2 would have been Simone Inzaghi. Doesn't speak English, has shown no interest in moving either. So out of the ones that were kind of suggested in Amorim, Southgate, Potter, even Tuchel to a certain extent, Xavi Hernandez, who else I've forgotten, Thomas Frank, not really keen on him either. So yeah, relatively happy. We needed a change. Let's see how he gets on. What will he do with Harry and Mass? Love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear suggestions about potential left wing back signings as well. We're going to have to do something in there. Not in January, in the summer. Don't say Alphonso Davies because we know that he's going to Real Madrid. So yeah, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. Take care. See you later.